Welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. Little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP, you're going to get 20% off your order with that code FNP at simbody.com. You're really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks ? Kicks.
Just like that, we're back, we're live, and we're set for another episode of Fight Night Picks ? Kicks. As always, one half your host to do Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNB. I suggest you do a lot of people have lately, and you can find Matt Allen on the respective socials at Matt Allen FNP. And we've got a big time card coming up this weekend. It's one that exists, and listen, there are a ton of people in the chat. Andrew Jackson, isn't he on the 10 in the States? I think he is. Viola Davis, she's on our 10. Prince Vegeta's son, C. Von Boss saying we're live, CT710, Sweet Dreams, LFG. Todd hanging out, and Justin Franks as well, and Alex Fox, and Lausnon, and Lucas23, and Sharif as well. Super sick, but I'm here, guys. Sharif, hopefully you're feeling better. I know I'm feeling something for this card coming up, Matt, this week. And I mean, listen, we're usually a little bit too positive. People get down on us for that, but then when we're too down, we're too negative. But when it comes to a card like this, I like to go to Fight Matrix, look over the UFC cards, and all of the other cards that they have on the upcoming event slate and try and compare and contrast. Bellator, they have a big card, Bellator 274 today. They're a 1.5 star on their rating schedule. So is the UFC's card. And then next week, the UFC slated at a 2-star, but they still haven't changed it. They still have Dariush taking on Makhachev. I'm sure when Bobby Green factors into it, it'll go down a little bit, but it's 2-star. Bellator is also 2-star with 275 over in Dublin. Title fight, Austin Vanderford challenging Gegard Mousasi. But coming up this weekend, Matt, I mean, it is an interesting card. Obviously, you have Johnny Walker taking on Jamal Hill. Some pretty big implications in the light heavyweight division. Every other fight on the card has zero implications to rankings or titles, and that really is the downer for me. I mean, 2 ranked fighters on this card, and now with Dariush out, 2 ranked fighters on next weekend's card, Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. It's quantity over the quality.
I'm just really upset that we're not getting Rafael versus Rafael this weekend. Like, I was really excited for Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. I thought that would have been a phenomenal fight. And that's just a fight that would have given you a little bit of everything. Both guys great strikers. Could have been fun if it got to the mat. Like, that just would have been a genuinely great 5-round contest. It does suck that we are no longer getting that fight, but I do still think that this weekend's main event, or at least today's main event, will be a fun fight. I know a lot of people are picking Jamal Hill. A lot of people have been going with him, especially today. But if we know anything about Johnny Walker, it's that anytime he steps into the cage, anything can happen. It can be flying knees, it can be spinning elbows. He's a very entertaining fighter in that respect, so I do think it should be a really fun fight. It just is unfortunate, like you said, that at least today's card and next week's card aren't the deepest cards we've ever seen from the UFC.
I mean, the worst part about it is I put the thumbnail out there for next week, and then I kind of wanted to get a gauge on what people were thinking. As soon as I put it out, the fight was, it was gone. Dariush is hurt, so in steps Bobby Green. I changed that one up. You can look forward to that video tomorrow night. We're going to film that one tomorrow. I know there's been a lot of talk of recaps. That's something that we're looking into. Todd, I saw your comment earlier. Theo C, what's going on? But Todd, I saw you looking for fight companions. If we get to 50K, maybe we'll consider that for the fight nights. But some of these fight nights, ooh, boy, they are less than stellar. But we'll switch it on over to our fight of the night screen. We'll get you excited about some fights. Chad Anheliger taking on Jesse Strader. Personally, I thought Jesse Strader was going to look a lot bigger than Chad did on weigh-in day. Pretty much not the same, but they were pretty damn close. So I'm looking forward to this one. Striker's Paradise, you know what you're going to get that way. So I think this should be a really fun one.
Exactly. This fight might not be the prettiest fight ever, but it's going to be a very, very fun fight, and I think that's the great thing about MMA. It might not always look the same, but it can still look really good. And with Anheliger, we talk about this all the time. Who could be the next great Canadian fighter? And maybe that's a lot of pressure to put on him, especially making his UFC debut. He's not the youngest prospect ever either, but I really do think Anheliger is going to have a fun run in the UFC, and this should be a really great start to his UFC career.
Joseph Moore saying Anheliger gonna surprise. Joseph, the only thing I say to that, he's a pretty big favorite in this fight. Taking on Jesse Strader. And then we have Gabriel Benitez and David Onama, and we said it at the start of the week, and I'm sure a lot of other people did too, the fact that Gabriel Benitez was supposed to fight last year, missed weight against JSP, weighed 150.5, they scrapped the fight, and then Gabriel comes in and he misses weight again. I say if he loses, he's a great Bellator fighter. That's all I have to say. He's going to have some fun ones over there.
It's been really tough. Like, we always poke fun. Oh, this is one of Craig's favorites. This is one of Matt's favorites. Like, Gabriel Benitez, I've always really enjoyed watching fight. And it's really sucked sort of this later stage of his career as of late. He hasn't been able to make weight. Just weird injuries, people pulling out of fights. It's been a really unfortunate run. This fight against David Onama should be a really, really fun fight, even though Benitez did miss weight. I know we're both still extremely excited for this matchup. So I think it will be a fun fight, but it's just been unfortunate to see a guy who was so exciting throughout his career just have this weird sort of stumble out the gate in his second half of his career.
But, both these guys come to Julian Lane, their fights. And Julian Lane, he's got a fight this weekend. But they both come to bang. It should be a good one. So, Matt, as the people know with Fight Night Picks, Kicks, what we'll do in the show, we go all the way from the bottom of the card back up to the top. We throw in the Kicks parlay. I've got one for this weekend. And then at the very end, if you ever miss anything, and if you're here with us right now, you know this drill. But we'll go back through it one more time, just in case anything is missed. We'll spend as much time as we can on these fights that are coming up because there's so many, interesting ones, a lot of different prospects. Not a ton of debuts this week. Next weekend, I believe we have 4, if I'm not mistaken. So it should be good that way. So, Matt, we'll flip it on over to the start of this one. We have Mario Bautista taking on Perrin, and this one is an interesting one. I mean, obviously, Mario Bautista is supposed to take on Khalid Taha. As we were filming on, Sunday night? They decided that no, Khalid Taha is not going to fight, but Mario will find an opponent. So, credit to Perrin for not only, being on Contender Series, not getting the contract, building himself back up, becoming the CES Bantamweight champ, but he was already scheduled for a fight, comes in on weight. He looked great on the scales, too, and I don't put the most stock into Friday, although it is a big component of the show, but I really do have to credit Perrin. Like, awesome opportunity for him to get into the UFC. Big litmus test getting a guy like Mario Bautista, whose 2 losses are against some pretty damn good competition. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a very, very fun fight. I want to hear from everybody over there in the comments section who you have in this one because, again, both guys you might think of as they're this, they're that. They're both very well-rounded, and I think style for style, they match up really well in this one.
I agree with everything you said, but I just think this is a really tough opportunity for Perrin to be making his UFC debut under. Like, to be fighting Mario Bautista after you've been getting ready for him for 2 months is a really hard ask for any guy in the UFC to do. And now they're asking Perrin to come in on short notice and still face that same opportunity. Like, it's going to be really hard to beat Mario Bautista this weekend. Like you said, though, he did look really good on the scale. I actually thought both guys looked half decent on the scale. I didn't think Bautista looked too trained. Again, he's a fairly big guy for this weight class, so always something you worry about a little bit, but I just think this is a really tough fight for Perrin. Again, I don't think this is going to be a one-and-done guy in the UFC by any means. It's just when you're asking someone to make their debut against a guy who I wouldn't really consider a debut-level fighter by any means in Bautista, I find myself siding with Bautista, even though I do see some upside in Perrin.
So Theo C saying Bautista, VT saying Mario here, and for Clay, he's saying for a pick, I'll take Bautista against a shorter notice fighter I hadn't heard of. I didn't bet it, though. I didn't bet it either, Clay. But when I look at this one for Bautista, there were a couple of commenters out there that were really upset that we went this way with it. And Mario Bautista fought more. You never know what could happen, but only 2 fights in 2019. He went 1-1, lost his debut against Corey Sandhagen, 1-0 in 2020, 0-1 in 2021 against Jones. He was booked for some other fights. They fell out. For Perrin, an interesting road to the UFC. Now, we didn't have odds when we originally did the breakdown for this earlier on in the week because it was so short notice. Bautista open to minus 270, is minus 363 right now. Perrin open to plus 230s, plus 286. So, again, continue to throw him on over there. Jesus M saying Mario for the dub, but he costs too much. I agree with you there. I think Mario Bautista, very, very good at long range. Again, he's a striker that attacks all 3 levels with kicks. Obviously, he's not punching somebody to the leg, but he will throw a lot of body shots. The one trouble with Bautista, Alain Baudot does this too, and I'll talk about it in the Parker Porter fight. When Mario Bautista throws a shot to the body, he leaves himself out there way too long to when he resets. Baudot is one of those guys that will do that as well. I think for Jay Perrin, very, very good wrestling, very sound that way. I just don't know how it's going to shake out against Bautista. I think he has a lot of advantages in pretty well every area. If you really like Perrin, I'd love to hear from you, but for me, yeah, I've got Bautista in this one fairly soundly. Okay, so we'll move on. Alistair, you're very kind over there in the comments section. Donnie Dimes hanging out every time. And MPTV, yeah, he's waiting for your Stephen A. Smith moment. What about Kwame Brown, Matt?
He has small hands. He can't catch the ball.
He's got small hands. We have Jonathan Pearce taking on Christian Rodriguez. And out of all of the debuts for this weekend, for next weekend, Christian Rodriguez is the one that I'm actually looking forward to the most. This guy is the most well-rounded fighter you're going to find coming into the UFC. Now, it is on short notice. It is against Pearce. And again, we talk about the sizes. And if you look at it for Christian Rodriguez, his last fight he weighed in at 150.5. It was catch weight. He's at catchweights all throughout his pro career, but a nice pro and amateur career. A couple of L's on the amateur circuit, but he went 5-2. He's a perfect 7-0 as a pro. His last fight was back in January, taking on 19-36 Ryan, McIntosh. Somebody in the comment section said they saw that fight, but there is no tape on that at all. You will not find it. They did not stream that event. But what I can tell you about Christian Rodriguez, good 1-2, and he sets everything up with it. He sets up his very technical, he can throw a right hook, he can throw an overhand, he can go into clinch, he can work his wrestling. This guy at Rufus Sport, you see the pictures there on his Instagram? He's like a 14-year-old kid at Rufus Sport training with the guys there. Now he's matured into a great fighter. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he might struggle against Jonathan Pearce, but what I will say, Rodriguez might have a little bit of the kryptonite in the wrestling. He definitely has a lot more volume on the feet than Pearce. It's just going to be a matter of time. Will Pearce be able to figure out those long-range weapons? Because when he does, he should be able to take over. I see Donnie saying JSP's too big. I'm eager to see what they look like today. Because at weigh-in day, I was surprised. Like, JSP, I figured, okay, he's almost 6 feet tall. Rodriguez is a shorter guy. But the way that they stacked up, it kind of surprised me a little bit yesterday.
I still think Pearce is the bigger guy, and it is going to be really interesting because I agree with everything you've said on Rodriguez, but he's going to need to use his stand-up very effectively to win this fight. I think he can grapple a little bit with Jonathan Pearce, but I really don't think he can go out there and win rounds from Jonathan Pearce in the grappling department. Maybe he could hurt him at the start of a round, get on top of him, and play some ground and pound that way, but for grappling's sake, I do think Jonathan Pearce has the edge in this matchup, and with his size, I think he can use it really well too. If he uses forward pressure, can keep his head somewhat protected while he does go for those takedown attempts, I do think Pearce can have success, but that's the thing about Rodriguez. I'm always going to go back to like my NBA, when a legend or an all-star gives a rookie credit, you really have to take that and put a lot of stock into it. And that's what I look at with Rodriguez. He has a lot of like really high level, just people in the MMA world who've been vouching for him for years. So it's really nice to see him get the opportunity in the UFC. And if he can beat someone like Jonathan Pearce, maybe to the average fan, it doesn't mean the biggest thing in the world, but I know people like you and me, like to beat a guy like Jonathan Pearce, that'll really mean something in your UFC debut, and that'd be a great way for him to get his career started. I do still think JSP is going to be able to grapple him in this matchup.
To Jake Allen's comment, I searched for 2 hours, couldn't find that fight. You know how I found out that I couldn't find it, Jake? Sometimes for the graphics, I end up searching on Facebook, and I find some fight tape there too. I found a picture of Christian Rodriguez at that event, like it was an event poster, and then underneath somebody said, hey, is there any way I can catch this? And somebody from Rufus Sports said, no, there was no stream. So then it just really hurt my feelings. Apparently, we're taping this before the fact, according to, is it Darren or Duran? I apologize to you, sir. But it's Duran. This isn't live. It is 100% live. I mean, pinch me. I'm in real life. I'm not living in the Matrix. But Bill, you're doing a great job with those cards behind the scenes, bud. But yeah, when it comes to this fight, JSP, I'm going with him. Again, we're up a weight class for Rodriguez, although his last fight was ahead of this weight class, if you want to say it that way. Pearce, a minus 384 favorite, juiced. And for Christian Rodriguez, plus 297. When I look at this one, Matt, and I really think about it, again, I think Rodriguez could have a very competitive fight, but I feel like he's the Onama to Mason Jones in this one, and when he moves back down to 135, I think he can go on a nice little run after this.
I personally don't look at Jonathan Pearce as like a Mason Jones level litmus test, but I see where you're getting at.
It is a test like that. All right, Matt. So we'll move on to our next fight. And this is the first one that we differ on out of the three. Chad Anheliger taking on Jesse Strader. And again, can you put the shoulders of Canada on a 35-year-old bantamweight who went 2-5 to start his career, but now we're here. He's on a tidy little win streak. He's a very good teammate of one Hakeem Dawodu, a guy who when Matt and I went to get groceries today, we talked a lot about Hakeem Dawodu. And listen, I can't wait to see more of me and Hakeem, but for Chad Anheliger, he's an interesting fighter. He really is. I mean, he's a guy that he'll wrestle when he needs to, but he really is a primary striker. When it comes to his boxing combinations, very crisp, very fast, attacks the head like there's no tomorrow. Jesse Strader's a little bit different. Utilizes length in and out, gets hit. But the thing that I like about Strader is with that length comes the liberties that he can kind of go for, or that he can kind of expend when he works to the body. Some of the finest body work you're going to have against lower level fighters in Combate. So we'll see how it plays out in this one. But again, it really is a tricky one. I mean, Joseph Moore saying Anheliger really impressed me on Dana White's Contender Series. When we're looking at this fight, though, Matt, again, we disagreed at the start of the week. I think we still disagree today. But there's really distinct paths to victory for both of these guys.
And I think we're going to get a lot of 50-50 striking out of the two, which is weird, because I do agree with you. I do think both guys have distinctive paths to victory, but I honestly think that neither guy is really going to follow them. Because with Anheliger, like you said, he has good boxing combinations, but he's almost too aggressive for his own good, and at a certain point in the UFC, that's probably going to catch him. Against Jesse Strader, will it be the fight he's going to get caught in? I don't believe so, but if you think so, I'm not going to disagree with you. And for Strader, he does have those really nice long-range weapons, like you said. He goes to the body really well. I don't really see him getting those opportunities in this matchup just because of the pressure that both guys are going to be using a lot. It's not really going to afford him a lot of that space. But I think that as long as this fight stays in the feet, and as long as we do get those 50-50 chances, both guys are going to have a great opportunity. Like, if Strader catches Anheliger with an uppercut based on a takedown attempt, or Anheliger cracks Strader with an overhand up against the cage and then knocks him out against it, like, I don't think either one of us would be surprised with either one of those outcomes, but I do still think the Canadian does have the few edges in this matchup.
And for me, I really like, again, the body work, the boxing combinations of Jesse Strader. I don't necessarily see Anheliger going for those wrestling exchanges. Jake and Bake hitting us up in the super chat. Let's get into it. Hey, let's get into it. Jake and Bake in the morning. Is that still a thing? Is it that Jake? Jake Storielli? Are you hanging out there? The question was, are we brothers? Yeah, I think so. I think we are. This was one of the ones at Fight Night Picks in the Instagram story that kind of surprised me. 73% of the fans going with the debuting Canadian in this one. And it really is a funny one because for Strader, I wasn't necessarily all that impressed when he came into the UFC. The one loss for him was to Marcelo Rojo, where they just went at it until one went down.
Wild.
And then for Strader, he was starting to put together some nice shots against Montel Jackson, but also he was fighting Montel Jackson, and he ended up losing that one. So it is a fun fight for sure. I do like Strader as an underdog. For me, I like fishing for a couple every event, every now and again. You hit nicely. So for Strader, open to plus 250. He's a plus 210 right now. For Anheliger, again, open to minus 300. He's a minus 261. I think implied odds were somewhere around the fan vote, actually, at 70 some odd percent. 73.6% implied odds at the start of the week when it was minus 279. They've gone down a little bit, but I still do like Strader as an underdog. But again, Anheliger, if he's going to get it done, it would not surprise me.
I think Anheliger's going to win.
All right, fair enough. We'll move into our next fight. This is one that I need to hear from some people over in the comments section. Diana Belbita taking on Gloria de Paula. Because in terms of, hey, I thought this fighter would be way bigger. Diana Belbita, former flyweight, challenge for the title over with KSW. I figured she was going to be a lot bigger. Numbers on a page, she's bigger than Gloria de Paula. They face off, not a chance. They were actually really similar in height, in size. I saw Clint over at Diehard MMA Pod on Twitter taking Gloria de Paula, sprinkling in a half-unit bet, Gloria by sub. She's never submitted anybody. She's a Muay Thai fighter, and she trains in a Muay Thai gym. If that happens, I swear I will give Clint his golf clap and his flowers on Twitter, because personally, I just don't see it happening. However, when I do look at Gloria de Paula, I could definitely see her winning this fight. I will say that. The odds were about par at the start of the week when we made the pick. I took Belbita because she's a little bit more active in some of these fights. but she's fighting somebody that can definitely counter-strike, stay on the outside, and somebody who's not afraid to strike on the back foot, moving side to side, and Gloria Paula in this.
And you look at Belbita's record, or at least I do, and I'm thinking, wow, she's got a lot of experience, right? 14-6. Then you do the deep dive on the record, and it's not as great as you'd like. Like, Matt Brown is always my favorite salty record, but really good fighter, because he fought some of the best fighters ever for a very, very long time. And if you do that, you're not going to end up with a pristine record. With Diana Belbita, a lot of her wins are over those like 0-1 fighters, 1-0 fighters, and then a lot of her losses are to, well, anybody who has anything more than that as a resume. So there is a lot of cause for concern going into this fight against someone like Gloria Paula, who probably does have the strength edge in this matchup, which I do think is going to be very important, because for Belbita, if she's able to get on top of her opponent, I would say her game is like a very young and a very inexperienced Roxanne Modafferi, if that's fair. If she can get on top, she's a very active fighter, she has good elbows, she has good grappling, but she can get out-muscled in a lot of these positions, and I do worry about that in this matchup against Paula, especially in the clinch.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah Goldie, is she a great wrestler? No, she's a volume striker, and in that fight, Diana goes ham, like the song, and then she almost has her hurt and finished, backs off for a second, Hannah just pushes her. Like, it's just a little push, and then Diana just completely falls down. Now, could it have been a misstep? Could it have been like Jeremiah Wells running into the cage last weekend? Just something odd? Maybe it was. But if we have a look at the odds for this one, Matt, again, with Belbita taking on Paula, they're close enough, but Belbita opened a minus 260 when we made the original video, minus 115. She's minus 127, so she has gained a little bit. For Gloria Paula, the 5-4 fighter, open a plus 220. She's plus 105 as it sits right now. And if we have a look at Fight Night Picks on Instagram to get the fan vote, 74% of the fans going with Diana Belbita. I don't know. I mean, Donnie Dimes, Belbita's going to out-volume her, and if it gets a nice little flurry, she could get ahead. I see this one being very close and somebody being salty if they put any money on it.
I was just about to say, don't put any money on it, guys. Very easy.
Did you? So I'm going to throw this one out there, and then I'll let you continue. If you check out Joshua Hart's full card betting guide for this one, he always has a pick for everything. For this one, he says, like, don't even touch it.
No,
this one's silly.
It's not worth it at all. You have someone who's what, like 5-6 against someone who's 14-6.
5-4.
5-4, sorry. Against someone whose record is 14-6, and most of her wins are over people who have 1 or 0 wins. I wouldn't be confident no matter who I picked in this, but at least Belbita has made minor improvements throughout her UFC tenure, and I do expect her to make at least a few more since her last performance, so that's why I do have her in this fight. But again, if she showed up looking not very good at all, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever.
No, it's a tricky one, and it's an odd move to go from Romanian kickboxing national champion to Muskoka Martial Arts in Ontario. Just somebody needs to make a movie of it, just like they need to make a movie of Chaz Skelly and Mark Striegl, because I look at this fight, Chaz Skelly, between the injuries, the inactivity, the fact that he's 36, all the fights that have fallen out. The last time he fought was about 1.5 years ago. He beat Jordan Griffin, no longer in the UFC. His other ones, Chris Grutzmacher, still in the UFC. Maximo Blanco, it's not fight of the night, performance of the night, Anaconda choke in 19 seconds. And Emilson Souza, Jim Ehlers, Sean Soriano, and Tom Ninamaki. The losses, Mirsad Betic, Darren Elkins, Jason Knight, and the no contest with Bobby Moffett that was just weird. Justin Franks saying Chaz for the win. Todd saying Skelly gonna wrap him up. Prince Vegeta's son saying fight of the night possible. At the weigh-ins, Chaz Skelly wanted to do the wrestling pose. Obviously, Mark Striegl, he is a Sambo master. Big wins in Southeast Asia, representing Philippines. Barely any fighters from Philippines in MMA.
Not many.
In MMA that migrates itself to North America, obviously with one championship. And other South Asian promotions, you're going to have plenty of fighters there. But mainly known by Craig and Matt, I would say, for their boxers. But when I look at this fight, it really is interesting. Todd saying Striegel's mom took Skelly. Yikes. I don't know what you're inferring there. But when it comes to a fight like this, obviously for Striegl, didn't look good in the debut when he went for the single leg and just got knocked out against Said Nurmagomedov. It'll be an interesting one here, though, because I like the fact that Striegl has been training out of the lab for this one.
I don't think he's going to be able to out-grapple Chaz Skelly, though. That's my real big issue in this matchup. Because here's the thing. Striegl does have a Sambo background, but I don't look at him and his MMA style and really put the Sambo master moniker on him. Like, when I think of a master in Sambo, I'm thinking of people like Fedor Emelianenko,
Blagoy Ivanov,
Khabib Nurmagomedov, Blagoy Ivanov, Islam Makhachev. Like, people who go out there and make you feel their physicality. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of what Sambo is. There's people who grapple in Sambo, there's people who strike in Sambo. At the end of the day, you're a very aggressive style, and you can use either one of those aspects, but it's normally coming down to your wrestling and your boxing. Striegl does that, but I wouldn't say he uses his physicality to that level of those fighters. And that's why I do think he's going to struggle a little bit in this matchup. And I was going to throw the comp of this fight off to you. I think this fight's going to look a lot like Gerald Meerschaert versus, who did he just fight? I can't think. Oh my goodness, he's got Crowd. No, he choked him out in the 3rd round. Your boy.
Dustin Stoichkos.
Thank you. I think this fight's going to look a lot like Dustin Stoichkos versus Gerald Meerschaert, where you have Striegl, who does fight Skelly, who does fight quite a bit like Meerschaert. Wonky striking, but it is kind of effective. A really good top game, especially with his submissions. And then Striegl, sort of the flashier guy, especially on the feet. And I do think he can have a few spots on the map, but I think just the consistent grappling of Skelly is really going to be a problem for Striegl in this matchup, because there's one thing to be a good grappler, there's another thing to be a really good MMA grappler, and Chaz Skelly really is a phenomenal MMA grappler.
Bag of Milk will come up later on in the show. It doesn't necessarily apply to Chaz Skelly, although we're getting there, but when it comes to the odds for this one, if you were thinking about an underdog that you wanted to toss something out there on, I think Striegl at a plus 172 isn't that bad. I think it's a decent price for him. Chaz Skelly at minus 207, just with the inactivity, the injuries, the age, all things considered. If we have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes, 58% Skelly, 42% Striegl. So I do like it that way. Todd hitting us up in the super chat. I was saying that even Striegel's mother would take Skelly on the money line. Oh, Todd! Thanks for hitting us up in the super chat. That is a classic one. That's a fan of the show right there. But yeah, when it comes to this one, I have Skelly. Again, when it comes to defensive submissions and a guy like Striegl, I do worry about him in some of these exchanges against such a well-conditioned guy like Skelly. Competing in the Bellators under the number 100. We're up to 274, 275 in the next 2 weeks. So both of us going with Chaz Skelly. Matt, we'll move on to the next one, because this is another one that if you like the wrestling and the grappling of Skelly and Striegl, well, Jessica Rose Clark has become a wrestler since she went on that initial win streak, the 2-fight losing streak, and since she's been back. It's just always periods of inactivity for Jessica Rose Clark. It's almost like people completely forget about her. Then it's a Jessica Rose Clark fight week. And I've seen more of Jessica Rose Clark on my Twitter timeline this week than I have of, the co-main event between Jamie Pickett and Kyle Dawkins. I really have, because everybody likes the Harley Quinn nature. Then they think of, okay, some of these performances that she's had lately. And it really all comes together to a lot of strong fan support. She's taking on Stephanie Egger. You talk about masters of sport. I mean, judo black belt, grew up in the judo gym. She definitely has a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background to go with it. And listen, we have some of these fighters where you think of them as a triple threat. I watched Stath Let's Flats. I think that show is as funny as it gets. Now my brain's moving way too fast. And his sister is good at nothing. But there's a guy that likes her, and he's like, oh, you're really a triple threat. You're funny, you can dance, you can sing. And I think of how awkward that show is. And then I think of fighters like Stephanie Egger, or a fighter like Yulia Stoliarenko, where, oh, you're really a triple threat. And then you look at the fights in the cage and go, well, no, it just hasn't come together for them yet. So for Stephanie Egger, obviously good at some of the takedowns, but to get her way into the clinch, it's a little wonky. And I disagreed with you heavily at the start of the week. I think if Jessica Rose Clark decides to wrestle against Egger, it could pose her problems. That's not the best way she should go at it. I think boxing combinations, pressuring her up, backing off, going back in. We'll see how the fight IQ plays into it. But Matt, when it comes to this fight, I do like Jessica Rose Clark here.
And I know you disagreed with me about how she's going to get it done, but I still think she's going to use her wrestling and her grappling. Again, if Tracy Cortez can do it, so can Jessica Rose Clark. That's just what I wake up and tell myself every single morning. That's just my daily affirmation. I just don't think Stephanie Egger is that world class of a grappler in MMA, and I really do think that's a proper distinction. Because here's the thing, if you're that good at judo, you go out there and you fight like Kayla Harrison. You fight like Ronda Rousey. With Stephanie Egger, I've seen her get out grappled in MMA before, and that really does concern me. Now, could she get off a defensive submission off her back against someone like Jessica Rose Clark? Of course she could, because Clark isn't of that degree of a grappler. She's a very dominant physical grappler, but I wouldn't say she has sort of the finer technique behind what she does. So listen, if Egger is going to get a win, it probably is going to be a quick armbar off her back, something very fast that you don't really see happening. But I don't know how Egger can go out there and just win minutes in this fight. That's what I keep on going back to. If she does have success, I just think it's going to be a burst here or there. It won't be anything sustainable, and that's why I like Rose Clark so much.
The odds in this one, that was the first time you said that.
Sorry, Jessica Rose Clark. I've been doing a really good job this week.
You did, and you didn't call Stephanie Egger Stephanie Eggers. You didn't all week, and I teased you forever about those. Jessica Rose Clark open to minus 235, minus 185. I'll get to your comments in just a second. Edgar open to plus 200, plus 155. So yeah, for me, I like Jessica Rose Clark in this one. Again, I think it's the boxing. I think it's a complete package, but I worry about her. If she takes this to the back, Edgar somehow backpacks her, and then everybody's just going, ooh, I put that as a parlay piece. That's the only worry that I have in this one. Over in the comments section, Laosnan, JRC with the wrestling, it's improved. It definitely has. She had, what was it, a really bad knee injury. That was the kind of the kicker for her, so to speak. Clay is saying, I think Clark deserves to be on the roster. I don't think Edgar will be around for long. Yeah, she was an interesting short notice call-up. She had that win over King Reina that was kind of a big deal, I guess. The Gabby Garcia grappling. But yeah, I do kind of worry, and I see Blood Money kind of making that case for Edgar as well. And yeah, Jocelyn Edwards in her ground game, she is a kickboxer, and that's it. So you got to kind of consider that one when it comes to this fight as well. There's some kind of conversation there, and Esteban is in agreement as well. Everyone on Clark fading the public. All right, Matt. So Gabriel Benitez taking on David Onama. Featured bout, and Gabriel losing 30% of his purse. Now, didn't lose like 40% like William Knight did, but hopefully he shows up, because William Knight last week, I mean, holy smokes. Like, how bad could you look at
that? That was awful.
It was so bad. David Onama, when I talk about a triple threat, I absolutely love all of David Onama's game. Undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro.
Like, he's handsome, he can dance, he can sing. Wow.
Fights a guy in Mason Jones that I'm really, really high on. Former Cage Warriors 2-division champ. You know the rest. And David Onama put on a damn good fight. Yeah, he got taken down a little bit. Yeah, he fought up a weight class at 155. But I liked what I saw out of Onama going into that fight. I like what I saw in that fight from Onama. He ate some shots. He was down to bang, and he had a really good one. So for Onama, for some reason, I've seen a lot of people really down on him on social media this week in the comment sections. I've seen a lot of people really high on Gabriel Benitez. And we can go both ways in this fight. I can sell you a Benitez win. I can do it too. I'm picking David Onama. I can get high on the Gabriel Benitez train, but
you can't. Let's
make the weight.
Let's be honest, you can't get high on a Gabriel Benitez train for this fight, because Benitez isn't the fighter he once was. Like, this is how I look at Gabriel Benitez. It's like there's a role player maybe for another NBA team that you kind of like and you always want your team. He's like Rashawn Holmes, kind of. Like, I really like Rashawn Holmes for the Sacramento Kings. And it'd be like if you're like kind of watching from a distance and then all of a sudden he messes up his knee and he's never the same fighter, or he's never the same basketball player again. With Benitez, things were going well. He wasn't an all-star caliber fighter by any means, to put it into other sports terms, but he was an exciting guy who was outside the rankings, but you felt like, okay, on his best day, he could give anybody from maybe 6 in the rankings down to 15. A really, really hard fight. Might not beat them, but he's going to give them a really hard fight. I don't look at him as that same fighter anymore. Maybe you do. Maybe you could sell that story of Benitez could go out there and beat a guy like David Onama, but to me, I think he lacks the volume to really affect Onama in this fight, because power for power, and people might find this controversial, I honestly think Gabriel Benitez has at least equal knockout power to David Onama in this matchup. He's got really good body kicks, he's got really good leg kicks, really good boxing combinations too. I just don't think he has the volume to go with that power in this fight, and I think he's going to struggle from that perspective. If he does get off to a bit of a slow start in this matchup, he's going to have a really hard time closing the distance as the fight goes on. The only way I see Benitez having success is if he gets off to a really, really hot start and then tries to capitalize from there. I don't see that being the case, though.
Kind of like Alain Baudot later on against Parker Porter. Hell of a first round against
Alain Baudot a lot.
But when it comes to this fight, I mean, I have David Onama first leg of the question mark kicks parlay at a minus 170. I have him in this one. I think it's decent value. I saw some differing things on the socials, but I look at Fight Night Picks. 77% of the fans in the Instagram story going with Onama. VT saying Onama by knockout. Where are you over there letting us know who you have? Because nobody seems to have Benitez. A lot of Onama.
Doesn't mean I didn't see any support for Benitez on social media this week, like whatsoever. That's why I was kind of surprised when you said you did.
Fair enough, Matt. All right, we will move on to our next fight. We have Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdulrazak Alhassan. And listen, out of everything that I have in my notes, I have notes of the week. You know, you have all your notes, then you have notes of the week. So in notes of the week, Joaquin Buckley weighing in at 183. He's not the biggest guy at middleweight. And Abdulrazak Alhassan is obviously a transplant from 170. We've got UFC expert analysis taking Alhassan. We have Kiko going banger, like Mike D. But when it comes to this one, yeah, I mean, you look at Abdulrazak Alhassan, he can knock out, a Mack truck. He could just stop it. Throw a kick.
He could knock out Lil Sebastian from Parks and Rec.
Okay, and for Joaquin Buckley, you could do the exact same thing. But I had this written down. In his corner will be the coach of the Detroit Urban Survival Training Commander, Dale Brown. And that's either the best move ever or the worst move ever. And we're going to find out what happens this weekend.
So that guy goes to a lot of Detroit Pistons games, and they, advertise him. It's very weird. I just know that because I like Cade Cunningham. That's a weird wrinkle to have in this fight. And honestly, I don't know what that says. I don't think he trained with him. I don't think this is a Steven Seagal, teach me your secret ways type of a deal.
Let's take a Bobby Knight timeout for a second.
Good publicity stunt.
He has been throwing kicks at his gym. I did see that. The super chat from George saying 400 viewers, less than 100 likes. Last weekend, you guys stopped about 11 short of Da Bomb hot sauce. That's on you. Toss those likes. The Da Bomb's still in the fridge and it still smells like garbage. Continue.
I forget why you cut me off in the first place.
You said you didn't figure that he actually trains with Dale Brown, but I've seen some videos where he's kicking the pads and Dale's holding them.
I think those are for social media, and that's it, to be completely honest. For King Buckley, the game plan for this fight is no different. You're trying to knock out Abdulrazak Alhassan. He's trying to do the exact same thing to you. I just like the kicks out of Alhassan a little bit more, and I do think he's the faster fighter. Now, he's the faster fighter, but he is kind of slow reactionary, which is going to concern me, at least early on in this fight, because Buckley is really fast at getting from point A to point B. The problem is he leaves himself very wide open when he goes from point A to point B, and I do think he's going to get caught at that point, and that's the thing. I just think whoever lands first is going to win this fight, if I'm being completely honest. I just think Abdulrazak Alhassan is going to land first, and that's why I have him in this fight. But if you said Joaquin Buckley's going to knock out Alhassan, I can't, act surprised.
I like Buckley simply based on the fact that he can move this way and this way. And there's one of these guys in this fight that only moves this way, and it's Abdulrazak Alhassan. So if I look at the odds, again, if I'm not mistaken, he was the underdog at the start of the week when we made the first video. He still is the underdog. I'm talking about your fighter from Ghana, Alhassan. He's a plus 139 average on best fight odds for Joaquin Buckley, a minus 166. Over in the comments section, Todd saying fight to go the distance is good money. I don't know about that, Todd. I don't. Because again, both of these guys in that Ferris wheel of head kick knockouts, Buckley, then there's D. Kiriko, then there's Alhassan. Now we pair these two guys up. And D. Kiriko's somewhere in Rome at his own gym watching this one on television, cringing a little bit. So again, we're going to go and split the picks on this one. I've got Joaquin Buckley. You've got Abdulrazak Alhassan. And Sunflower saying Alhassan has no chin. Bennett Charles saying from 98 to 145 likes. Good first wave, boys, but we got to up those numbers for Da Bomb. Maybe I'll do a content piece at some point with Da Bomb if I lose one, if I put myself way out there. But in the next fight, Matt, I saw something interesting about Jim Miller, who's taking on Nicholas Mata. And if you look at it for Jim Miller, it's his 50th pro fight. He's been in the UFC since 2008. He's going to tie, or trying to tie, Cowboy Cerrone's record for most UFC wins. He already owns top spot as UFC's most fights. And for Jim Miller, he was a bigger favorite against Nicholas Mata in their first pairing back, in November, than he even opened in this fight. That's kind of crazy because for Miller, went out there, fought Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, who got the short notice call out from Combate. And Jim Miller ate some shots and looked like maybe he's going to end up getting finished to coming out in the second round and knocking Eric Gonzalez dead. And Jim Miller doesn't knock guys dead. He only has 5 knockout wins in 50 fights. So it's kind of insane. Now he's taking on Mata, who was in the camp for RDA, who's taking on Fiziev down at Novo União. Mata is a guy that used to train at Factory X, but again, moving it back down to Novo União, I think Dede Pederneiras is going to be a great corner, especially for a fight against Jim Miller. So I love this fight, Matt, because could Jim Miller go out there and just stymie Mata's game? Jim Miller's like the Arlovsky of this division. He really is. He beats these prospects. So good opportunity for Jim Miller, but just like I always pick against Andrei Arlovsky, I'm picking against Jim Miller in this one too.
It's really hard to pick Miller in this matchup, and I'm someone who really has enjoyed this sort of later career stage of Jim Miller, because like you said, I don't know if I'd like him to win Arlovsky just because Arlovsky is much more, I'll just hit you a couple times and move, whereas Miller gets into absolute firefights even at this stage of his career, which is wild to think of, because normally as you get older and you eat a lot more damage, you would like to receive less damage, so you fight in a more safe manner. Jim Miller's like, screw all that, I'm just going to fight in the exact same way that I did in 2003, which is the other crazy thing about Jim Miller. He started his MMA career when I was in kindergarten. It's been a while since those things happened, so it's just been really nice to see the career of Jim Miller unfold before our very eyes, but I do think this is a hard matchup against Mata, because Against Mata, he's going to make you pay for every second you're on the feet with him, where I don't think a lot of Miller's past opponents have been able to do. Now, if you go back further enough, you can see the guys like Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis, Dan Hooker. That was a really hard run. That'd be a hard run for anybody, if we're being honest. But if you look at how those guys had success, it was, hey, at some point we're going to have to grapple with Jim Miller. We'll deal with those parts when we get to those. But when we're on the feet, we really have to make him pay for his... I don't even want to say Jim Miller has bad stand-up, because he doesn't have bad stand-up. He just isn't that fast at this stage of his career, so a lot of guys who have good stand-up can really take advantage of that. And I do think Mata can at least follow along that game plan that has been set before.
Dave Baker, always out there in the comments section throughout the week, doing great work. If you catch him out there in the comments section, exchange pleasantries. He's a real one out there, like you said. You want the best, it's FNP. Dave Baker, thank you for the super chat. And thanks everybody who set up the super chat so far. Esteban is saying, I'm fading this one. Dev the Dude, Miller by decision. And Todd saying, you know that's right, Dave. Oh, much appreciated. Will Duke saying, if Miller doesn't get knocked out trying for the takedown, then Miller will win by RNC. It definitely could happen. And I look at this fight, I mean, the speed, we're starting to throw down or slow down for Jim Miller. Obviously, the former common opponent being Joe Selecki. Mata knocked him out, which is crazy. And for Jim Miller, he just got held down and out-grappled in that one. Obviously, Selecki wasn't able to get the submission, but, man, it was kind of sad. Like, it was like when Vince
He's just so physical with his grappling.
It was. And Joe Selecki, a really fun guy to watch. So, again, both of us going with Brazil's UFC debutant here in Nicholas Mata. I think it's going to be a really fun one. I'm really looking forward to it. More so than this fight at heavyweight. We have Parker Porter taking on Alain Baudot. Alain's last true win was back in 2018 against a fighter who had a negative record, and he finished him. Now, after that, he fights Todd Stout with TKO. It's a win on his record, but he gets submitted by a rear naked choke. After the fact, it's overturned, not to a no contest like it should have been, to a disqualification. So the UFC went, hey, let's take a flyer on this guy. They sign him to fight Tom Aspinall. He starts out hot and heavy. He gets knocked out. He goes and fights Rodrigo Nascimento. He starts out really hot and heavy, almost finishes him 3 freaking times. Like, once on the feet, once on the mat, and he's hammering away in ground and pound. And then he stands up, which is kind of dumb. And then he gets... Nascimento is a good grappler. He's good at jiu-jitsu. He hammers down a couple more, and then back on the feet, he's throwing 3-punch combos like they're going out of style. Then in the second round, well, Parker's got nothing. And Rodrigo starts to pop the jab through the guard, and Baudot gets backed up to the cage, and then eventually, uppercut, he goes down, and he gets finished. Rodrigo Nascimento is not a heavy-handed knockout artist in the UFC's heavyweight division. So when I look at this one, Baudot is just such an odd fighter, and I would think a guy that's on a 2-fight losing streak. Now, you can counter me in this argument, but just let me have it. Baudot's one of those guys that you're on the chopping block. You lose another one, you're done. You're already 0-2 in the UFC. Fernan Lopez is not a part of his corner. Now, he hasn't been, so maybe it shouldn't come as a surprise that way, but Baudot representing MMA Factory in this one. Artem saying Baudot will probably go to PFL if he loses this one.
He'll probably win $1 million over there, which is wild, because Felipe Lids did it. You can too.
That much is true. But when I look at this one, I mean, I don't have the most confidence in Alain Baudot, and I'm very, very biased in this one. I would not place a bet on this one. I've thrown out all those things. Parker Porter's the more steady fighter. That's why I like him. I like steady fighters in lower level heavyweight MMA.
Like, if I were to describe to my grandmother in 2010 what an MMA heavyweight would be, I'd probably come up with a name like Parker Porter. He'd probably look a lot like Parker Porter.
Would he have already fought John Jones?
He would have already fought John Jones early on. Because, of course, you have to have that early career setback to then really set you off into, like, your positive trajectory. But Parker Porter's just the average across the board. He's got good striking. He's got good wrestling. Like, I don't have anything negative to say about Parker Porter. He is a very average MMA heavyweight. He has good cardio. I'd say that probably stands out amongst his top qualities. But with Alain Baudot, I'm throwing him in the Anthony Freight Train Hamilton category of like, hey, you're here and that's cool. But like, I don't really think Baudot is going to go on some big long run and then get into the rankings. Like, I know when Jan Blachowicz won the title, it was, oh wow, how unlikely is this? He started his career 2-4, then he went on a crazy run, got the title. That happens every now and then, but I don't believe it's going to happen for Alain Baudot. I don't really feel like being all that much more negative about this fight, so I'll just say I like Parker Porter in this matchup just because of his steadiness more than anything. I do like his ability to put volume together. He's pretty good in the clinch if the fight does go there. And like I said, if it does go past the first round, if we do get some heavy hands being put back and forth, I like Porter to probably win round 2 and 3 due to his cardio. So that's how I feel about this fight.
Parker Porter weighing in at 263. Hey! He made the weight. Look at him. Justin Taffa couldn't do it. For Alain Baudot, out of his last 3 fights in the UFC, 254, 246, 256, bag of milk. Bag of milk. But he is a speedy striker. He has a really good overhand right, but he starts to spam it in his fights. And also, he dips his head so damn far down, and I think a guy like Porter's going to catch him. So in this fight, Matt, we got to bring it up. We got to talk about it. At Fight Night Picks, 56% of the fans going with Porter to 44% about Baudot. So again, if you like Baudot, let us know. But again, Jets over there and a few other people saying, hey, this could be a parlay buster.
Not to pick on you, Clay, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Parker Porter would be heavy if he got on top.
Yeah. Big heavy fella. All right, Matt, we move into our co-main event of the evening. I also saw somebody mention, hey, anything can happen. Jamie Pickett's on a 2-fight win streak. Never thought that would happen in the UFC. Now, did I have him to win his last 2 fights? I did, which is a bit of a surprise. But in this one against Kyle Daukaus, it's tricky, right? Because it's a 195-pound catchweight. We don't like to do those in the UFC, but they did it, and both guys made weight successfully. So you like to see that. Over in the comments section, 23 OEL, Daukaus easy dub. Canadians for the cup. Yeah. You got to switch it. Just make it Canadians for Shane Wright, because I think that might happen. Daukaus by sub. Draco saying Porter by decision. And Esteban saying, is that Chris Daukaus' brother? It is. VT Daukaus, let's go. Laos Non, Kyle Lock of the night. Ooh, no locks on this channel. Manpreet's got them, though. But Matt, when it does come to this fight, Jamie Pickett's done a really good job in his last 2 fights of his takedown defense. It definitely does look improved. His upper body, he's able to throw guys off of him.
Who'd he fight, though?
Blown up welterweight in his second to last fight, which is concerning.
And then in his last one?
Yeah, he was able to really get a win in that one. It might have been one of the easier ones that he's had. Except for the first round, he did get outstruck. But I think a guy like Kyle Daukaus, again, Prince Vegeta's son makes a really good point. Can Jamie Pickett use that reach advantage early in this fight? That's what we're going to have to learn, because when Pickett figures out range, and it takes him some time sometimes, he can be an impressive, deceiving kind of striker. Look at his Pati win. Look at his last fight against Joseph Holmes, round 2 and on. But in a fight like this, yeah, I do like Kyle Daukaus. I do like his grappling, and I was surprised how much success he had in the pockets of success against Kevin Holland his last time out.
I just think he's a far superior grappler to what Jamie Pickett can possess. And the thing about Pickett is that he does have good power at the long range of his attacks. He is good on the short range too, but he's more sort of defensively oriented when it is in the clinch. He's not really looking for his own knockout blows. Whereas for Daukaus, once it's in the clinch, that's really when his game starts, and that's when he's going for a lot of his takedowns. This fight to me is sort of one of those all-time buy low, sell high type things, because a lot of people are down on Daukaus. I know he had that weird no contest against Kevin Holland. Hadn't looked amazing before that, if we're all being honest. I know a lot of people like to go back and say, oh, well, look how good he looked against Brendan Allen. And he did, but still, there hasn't really been... we haven't really seen the results that we'd like out of Kyle Daukaus up to this point, but I do think people are sort of selling a little, or buying a little bit high, on Jamie Pickett. He does have 2 good wins in his last 2, but like I said when you were talking about him, they're not the best wins by any stretch of the imagination. And I do really think going from fighting a guy like Joseph Holmes to then fighting a guy like Kyle Daukaus, as Corey Anderson famously taught us, there's levels to this, and I do think Kyle Daukaus is on another level.
576 people tuned in for a UFC Fight Night. Hey, how are you doing? It's great to have you. If you could toss a like, it would be much appreciated. Draco Kamikaze saying Pickett has 85% takedown defense. Pickett will knock out Daukaus. I wouldn't be surprised if Pickett ends up winning a decision. I would be very surprised if he knocked him out, because and I don't mean to pick on you, Draco, but Joseph Holmes went for a couple takedown attempts. Nope. Loriano Staropoli went 1 of 9 on takedown attempts. Jordan Wright, there were no takedown attempts because they just slugged it out. Tafon Chukwe was able to completely outstrike in that fight, but he did go 0 of 2 in takedown attempts. And then
not a single natural wrestler.
Some of those numbers, on UFC stats are going to include Jonathan Pati, Punahele Soriano, and Charles Byrd. 2 of those on Contender Series are losses to Soriano and Charles Byrd. So for me, I do like Kyle Daukaus in this fight. I like Chris's brother. And we will move on, Matt, to our main event of the evening. Johnny Walker taking on Jamal Hill. When Johnny Walker made the walk to the scale yesterday, I thought, is this guy falling on a banana peel? What's going on? Because he does this thing. Ooh, the super chat. We have it. Thanks for all the hard work, boys. Thank you very much. ER at the end. I'm having a hard time trying to think of how to pronounce the first part of that in my head.
Thank you for supporting.
But I do appreciate the support. So, Matt, when it comes to this fight, Johnny Walker steps up on the scale. looks a little like he's wincing, then he grabs his lower back. When he gets off the scale, it's all very weird, and most people are like, hey, he does this every time. I still think it's weird. I don't know if it's good, I don't know if it's bad, it's just weird. Taking on a Jamal Hill who, I mean, man, like, is fight week any different from any other week or day for Jamal Hill?
Do you think he just watched every Gegard Mousasi interview going and thought, I'm just going to try to act like that guy and just be as mild-mannered as possible?
The super chat, thanks for the content. You guys are amazing. Love from Brazil. Walker's got this. Hey, I mean, this is such a fun fight, and I really do appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, the Moose has got a fight coming up. Super chat from Will Duke.
Thank you, Will.
With the #1 fan. The super chat. Got the club going up on a Saturday. I love McConan. You don't hear much out of him anymore. But yeah, I really do like that. I mean,
I think this is an awful fight for Johnny Walker, to be completely honest with you. But like, Jamal Hill had a quote that really stuck out to me. And he's like, I hope he gets wild. Because if he does, he's getting knocked out. And it does make sense. Like, when you get wild in MMA fights, I always go back to this quote that Michael Chandler had when Justin Gaethje decided to sign with the UFC and not with Bellator when that was a potential matchup. And he said Justin Gaethje is so incredibly wild in his fights because he isn't confident about his own striking ability. It's like, wow, that's a wild statement. Let's break that down a little bit. He knows that, okay, strike for strike, I can't beat my opponent. But if I get crazy, if I make it a firefight, I can outwill my opponent. So I'll make it something more than just a striking battle. Johnny Walker is a wild and crazy striker because he's probably not going to go out there and out-jab, out-right-hand a lot of his opponents and beat them in a traditional sense. Now you're fighting a natural striker who knows what you're going to throw, who realizes that your only real chance in this fight is to throw one of those wild flying knees or spinning back fists. So maybe that makes Jamal Hill a little bit more hesitant early on in this fight. But I really do think that the second these guys engage, Johnny Walker, who hasn't shown off the highest level of durability, if we're all being completely honest, he had a few good shots against Thiago Santos. Let's give him credit for that. But throughout his career, he has been dropped multiple times in a lot of his fights, and Jamal Hill's the type of fighter who, if he hits you one time, and I mean like one time, he puts you out. Just go back to the Jimmy Crute fight. Like, Jimmy Crute's a pretty big, strong guy, and he went out cold because of one shot from Hill. I just think stylistically, this is a very tough matchup for Johnny Walker.
MPTV, I said I love McConan. That's how it's said, right? But yeah, when it looks like this one, Urban Man of NJ, there's been a lot of people that have been hard on you this week. Matt makes it seem like Jamal is a crazy technical fighter. Stop it. I will back up Matt's fact. Jamal Hill has a crazy strike differential and a crazy strike accuracy. 51% accuracy, 7.45 strikes, significant strikes landed per minute to 3.68 received. Yeah, he gets hit a little bit more. Draco Kamikaze. Again, I apologize for trying not to be hard on you in the last fight. You hit us up in the super chat. I appreciate you. That means a lot because we're here to have a good time. And I saw a comment earlier about trying to be unbiased. We try and give ways that both of these guys are going to win. It's, if you look in the description portion of the Fight Night Picks YouTube channel, wins are great, and being able to pad our records at the end of the year looks good. But at the same time, it's about trying to get you the information that, you know, sometimes you don't get, especially on these prelim fighters. I mean, even especially looking at next weekend's card, like the debuts, you have Victor Altamirano, Carlos Hernandez, Ramona Pascual, and Armin Petrosian, but not that Armin Petrosian, it's another one. But on this fight, Matt, yeah, Jamal Hill, very technical fighter. I'm just eager to see where Johnny Walker coming out of SBG again, what's it going to be like? Because in his last fight, he was super reserved. I'm going with the over 1.5 rounds in this fight, and that's at a -140. So that's why I'm going to throw a flyer out on that one. So that and David Onama, if you go together with those, I think when I calculated it, it was plus 172 for those two. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Johnny Walker obviously brings that kind of craziness, that uniqueness into his fights. Could he knock out Jamal Hill? 110%. I mean, you look at Walker, you get taken down and destroyed on the mat against Nikita Krylov. You fight Ryan Spann, you think, oh, he's going to get taken down and beaten. No, I'm just going to keep elbowing him like Ryan Spann is susceptible to. So when I look at this one, again, I see the question, what about, you know, Jamal Hill gassing? I like the way that he looked in 3 rounds against Darko Stosic, and Stosic was really mixing in the wrestling, mixing everything in. Darko Stosic is just going to fight for a KSW title against Phil DeFries next weekend.
There's been a lot of former UFC guys who have fought Phil DeFries, and they're all former UFC guys on purpose.
He's looked really good over at KSW. But again, when it comes to this fight, I do like Jamal Hill. In this one, I think Johnny Walker has that, again, that wildness to his game, but I do like Hill in this one.
That's why I don't love the over 1.5 pick, I'm just being honest, because here's the thing. If Johnny Walker is going to win, which is half the equation, it's going to be in the first round and a half because he does something crazy. So that's half the fight right there. And then for Jamal Hill, I really do think he has a great opportunity to finish this fight, be it early or late. So to me, I just think there's too much of an opportunity for either guy to get that finish early. For me to want to bet on where the fight's going to end, I'd probably just side with Hill personally. But I think this could be a really fun main event.
Eric Cote all over it. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to pepper in some underdogs every now and again. And 64% of the fans here going with Hill. 69% of the fans at Fight Night Picks going with Hill in the Instagram story. So I think this is going to be a very, very fun fight. Again, continue to fill up that chat. Almost 600 tuning in right now. You can toss a like, but as we always do every single Saturday, 2 hours before the prelims, if you missed anything, we'll go back to the bottom, back up to the top, offer up those final picks, and so on and so forth. Derek saying, how do you feel about Mendez and Perry at bare knuckle tonight? I feel sad, and I don't like bare knuckle boxing. And I did a whole series on bare knuckle boxing years ago, and I gave it a whirl, so you can't say that I'm just being super biased. I just don't like it.
I really like regular boxing. But here's the flip side. I don't watch like kickboxing either. So
yeah,
if you like bare knuckle, have at it. Just I'm not a huge fan personally.
All right, so we move on to the first fight on the card. Perrin, Mario Bautista. I love this fight. Like, I am tuned into this one. I do have Mario Bautista in this one.
Yeah, I like Bautista in this one. Hopefully for Perrin, he can make a good enough account of himself that at least gets fans excited for his second debut or his second time out. But I just think it's a tough fight to be against Bautista.
I think if you match these two guys up, if Perrin loses this fight and Christian Rodriguez loses his fight, that's a great pairing. I think style for style, they match up well. I do like JSP in this one. I will say, though, again, Christian Rodriguez is my favorite prospect out of this weekend and next weekend, so take that for what it's worth. My word accounts for anything, but I do like JSP here.
I just think JSP is going to be the more consistent guy, and I think he'll be able to out-grapple Rodriguez in this matchup, but it should be a really fun fight.
All right, Matt. OG4Twans is going way too hard in the comments section. You've got Chad Anheliger taking on Jesse Strader. I have Strader as a pretty big underdog in this one. Again, I think it's a close fight, and I do like the fact that Strader's a little bit bigger. I like his combinations, but the forward pressure of Chad Anheliger, he never gets out of your friggin' face.
And that's why I don't think Strader's going to have enough opportunity to get the distance he needs to throw those combinations. That's why I have Anheliger.
Mystic Souza, we started one. It's probably still out there. I'm going to invest more into that Discord, more time and resources into it, because I think that could be a fun one to continue the conversation along. Diana Belbita taking on Gloria de Paula. This is my least confident read of the entire weekend. I have Diana Belbita, but I'm just going to watch it.
It's fair to say if you put money on this fight, you don't value money very much, and that's good for you, I guess. I have Belbita just because she has shown some improvements, but I don't have a lot of confidence in this one.
David Cahill's hanging out from Portland, land of the zombies. Listen, Waterloo, that's where the vampires are at, but which Portland is it? Oregon or Maine? Because I've only been to one of them, and I've been to one of them a lot. We got Chaz Skelly taking on Mark Mugen Striegl, and again, this is another one. If you do like, the splash of the underdog, you might be interested in Mark Striegl in this one. Chaz Skelly's been off for a very long time. I do like his path to victory, though, in this fight.
This grappling of Skelly is really hard to overcome because he's so tricky. He's not really a wrestler. He's not a pure jiu-jitsu guy. He's a really unique combination of both, and he has great cardio, too, which is a really tough combination for anybody to deal with. So I like Skelly, but I agree with you. I do have some hesitancies based on his inactivity, especially as of late, but his skill set I like more than Mark Striegel's.
You have Cole Shelton hanging out from BJPenn.com over in the comments section. Fellow Canadian Jack Stapleton hitting us up in the super chat. Jack, what's the number 30 for? I don't get it, pal. But thank you for the big super chat. It means a lot. So thank you, Jack, for supporting the channel. Explain yourself. I'll try to get to you in the comments section as we move forward. We've got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Stephanie Egger. I'm going with Jessica Rose Clark in this fight against Stephanie Egger. Very, very interesting background. Eager to see how it plays into this one, but I do like Clark with the pressure and with the boxing here.
I just think Clark's a much more well-rounded fighter, and I think it's going to really pay off in this fight.
Joe, you are right. Lots of super chats today. That is nice. It has been nice. So again, thank you so much for supporting. Definitely a lot of good fans out there today. Gabriel Benitez taking on David Onama. I have Onama as the first leg of the question mark kicks parlay at a minus 170. I've got Onama here.
This should be a really fun fight, but I do like Onama quite a bit in this matchup. I think he's, the more well-rounded guy, and I do think that if the fight goes late, he could even get a finish on the feet.
All right, so both of us going with him. We're split on the pick here. I've got Joaquin Buckley hanging out with Dale Brown. Commander Dale loves to be photogenic on the internet, and I'm surprised straight up that, the UFC would be like, yeah, Sure, if you want him to corner.
Perry had his girlfriend.
Yeah, but we've seen significant others in corners before. It's just odd. It's odd. Like,
well, yeah, but this sport is pretty odd compared to every other one going, Craig. So I don't know if having a meme as a corner guy is even the crazy thing that's going to happen in MMA this week. I think Abdul Razak Al Hassan's going to win by knockout. But here's the thing. Somebody is probably going to win by knockout.
Draco hitting us up in the super chat. I've got Benitez. He should have more skill. And that pays the bills.
And I'll be so you are the first person I've seen to really publicly support Gabriel Benitez. So I'll be very curious to see if he can win.
And listen, Draco, if we're wrong, we'll eat our words and we'll shout you out once more next week. So Matt, we look at our next fight. We have Jim Miller taking on Nicholas Mata. I'm going with Nicholas Mata in this fight. It'd be the cat's behind if Jim Miller could tie that UFC wins record. But yeah, for me, I like Mata. He is such a speedy striker. And I like that against a guy like Jim Miller.
Jim Miller's never going to cheat himself. And that's something that's good. I'm never going to expect Jim Miller to just completely fall off a cliff. He will always be competitive in a lot of these matchups because he is well-rounded. He does have good stand-up. He's very tricky on the mat, good grappler. Everybody knows what I'm going to say about Jim Miller. He's very good at most aspects of MMA. I just feel like Father Time is starting to catch up to him. I know he was able to beat Gonzalez in his last one out, but I do think Mata is going to be a next step up. I do think he's going to be one step too far.
Well, Matt, we'll move into our next one. We have Parker Porter and Alain Baudot. And listen, Alain Baudot's got a good shot, especially in the first round. If Parker Porter can't figure out that distance, Baudot throws the kitchen sink at you. And the craziest part about his last fight was he was having so much success with his hands that he stopped throwing his leg kick. His leg kick was great. So, again, for Alain Baudot, he is a very, very interesting kickboxer in this matchup. I like Parker Porter with the activity, though.
And I think he's the much more consistent guy out of these two. Even if Baudot has success early, I don't really expect him to continue to have similar versions of success in the second and third round. Maybe you disagree. I don't think you do. But with Porter, it might not be flashy. It might not be Yair Rodriguez-esque striking, but it is effective. And it's very meat and potatoes. A very good way to describe Parker Porter's game, I think. I do think he'll be able to win by decision, but I don't think this is going to win fight of the night. I do not.
Kiko saying, Baudot, future champ. Si Alain Baudot gagne le championnat, I'll just lose my mind.
It's not happening.
That'll be the end of it, and I'll do every show in French from here on out. Jamie Pickett taking on Kyle Dacus. I'm going with Chris's brother in this one, but I'm really eager to see this fight, especially it being on short notice. I'm not totally opposed to the pick. It does feel a little Makachev, Bobby Green-esque, but I am here for it.
I know you said earlier on that you were like, I'm kind of surprised I've seen more about Jessica Rose Clark than I have about this co-main event between Jamie Pickett and Kyle Dacus. Jamie Pickett could walk into your house right now, Craig, and no one would know who he is. And it is unfortunate. It just is. No, Jamie Pickett isn't as big of a star as where this fight is set up. And it is unfortunate because he has looked really good as of late. This is going to be a very, very big opportunity for him. See, I'm siding with what you said. For Pickett, it wasn't a very good start to his career at all. And this is the type of matchup that can erase some of those prior losses because Dacus is a huge step up over guys like Staropoli and Holmes in his last matchup. I just think it is one step too far, and I do think Dacus is the far superior grappler in this matchup.
Brandon G. I would be willing to do a show in French, so it wouldn't take much. I wouldn't do a bottle of hot sauce rather than do that. And in our main event, I got the over 1.5 rounds between Hill and Walker. It's gutsy. It's -140. It goes with Onama. And that's my QMK parlay for the week. It's pop and popcorn. We're putting a bag of popcorn on it. That's all. Because that's all we do here at this channel. We like to have fun. We like to break down the fights and talk about some of the lesser known fighters and the prospects. So Matt, it is a big time fight. It should be a good one. But both of us in this one going with Jamal Hill. But this is one of those ones, again, the UFC press conference, if you look at it on the UFC's website, they have a picture of Johnny Walker. I'm here to tell you, if you go back, they switched the picture after the fact and only ever go with the winner. So if you want to go back, for Hermansson Strickland, the picture is Strickland now. But before the fight even happened, it was actually Jack Hermansson.
So this is the only last thing that we can leave people with. We both have Jamal Hill, so I guess the only question is, do you think the extra 2 rounds will affect either guy? Who do you think it will affect more? I'm sure it's going to have a part to play. A, do you think we'll get into those rounds to begin with? Will they play a part? And B, if we do get into those rounds, who do you think is going to have the advantage because of them?
Jamal Hill does throw a lot of volume. Obviously, I do like the 5-round experience that Johnny Walker has in his last fight. I don't think it doesn't really favor either guy because this fight was announced last Friday is now, all of a sudden it's 5 rounds. It's supposed to be 3 before. That's the thing that scares me a little bit.
No, that's why I'm asking.
Fair enough. And, you know, it could end up a finish early because of that.
That's why I think we're getting a finish early. That's why I'm a little hesitant with the over 1.5. They didn't even think this fight was going to be 5 rounds. So they only expected a 3-round fight. Plus you have 2 knockout artists. I think this fight's going to probably end in the first half of the fight.
Now am I a little bit worried? I am, but I put myself out there. We've got Tovan hitting us up in the super chat. Love you guys. Perfect. Listen, for the drive right now, he'll also second round KO. So again, let us know who you have over in the comments section. If I get the QMK parlay wrong, I will look like a donkey, and yeah, it'll be what it is. But I definitely appreciate everybody that's hit up the super chat, everybody that's tuned in this week.
Thank you, guys.
And yeah, we're looking forward to Makhachev versus Green next weekend. We're going to tape those videos tomorrow. We're going to put them all out tomorrow, and it'll probably be later on in the day for that one. But yeah, I'm really eager. We got a lot of prospects. And then when it comes to some of the cards, you know, that are coming up, UFC 273, you've got the UFC card over in London. Like, they're starting to stack those ones. So we're kind of getting out of the doldrums here moving forward.
Yeah, there's 6 straight fight cards after this week. Like, there's a lot of really high quality MMA to get to in the very near future. So it's basically get through today's card. Next weekend's card does have some really fun fights on it, going top to bottom. Like you said, a lot of prospects, but there are a few fun ones littered throughout there. And what if Bobby Green gets the win? Like, think about how different his career looks in only a 3-week stretch. So, huge opportunity for both guys in the main event. Should be fun to break down.
Big opportunity. Enjoy the fights today. And Todd said Bellator, big Bellator card. No picks for it. I'm looking forward to it. And even next weekend, another big Bellator and KSW and UFC. All sorts of combat sports to watch. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as we always say, with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it. Woo! What a show!
That was good.